Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this video. We are here today to talk about the deluxe slip-covered edition of the graphic novel I'm a Barbarian. And we have the artist Mike Dubisch here with us to enlighten us on all the different aspects of the background of this wonderful project. Which started out as one of the Edgar Rice Burroughs online comic strips at edgarriceburroughs.com. Should check that out. We've got a subscription program. The book itself comes out. I'm going to put this little banner up here. The book itself is available from Cedar Run Publications.com. Encourage you to check that out. I'm a Barbarian. Let's go back to the novel. It is originally a novel by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It was published in 1967 by my company, Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, where I am the director of publishing. My name is Christopher Paul Carey, as you can see on the screen. It came out in this very nice edition with Jeffrey Jones artwork on it. And was later put out in paperback by Ace Books. So that's the version I read when I was a kid. The striking
me too.
Boris Vallejo cover art. So, the I'm a Barbarian was written back in 1941, April 11th to September 27th, 1941. Edgar Rice Burroughs finished it only a couple of months or so before the attack on Pearl Harbor. And at the time, Edgar Rice Burroughs was living in Hawaii, so that was quite an event for him, and he actually witnessed the attack. The novel was, in some sense, a response to the popularity of a book at the time, Robert Graves' I, Claudius. But more than that, Edgar Rice Burroughs always held, had a long-held fascination with ancient Rome that went back to his schoolboy days when he was at the Harvard School in Chicago, Illinois. He studied Latin, Greek and Latin. They had an emphasis on it there, and he was there from 1888 to 1891. And I think it's kind of telling that his marks in Latin were higher than his marks in English. So he definitely had an interest in it even back then. And then later in 1928, he wrote the novel Tarzan in the Lost Empire, which saw Tarzan discovering a lost Roman civilization in Africa. And he had another secondary protagonist in the book who was an archaeologist who studied ancient Rome. And so, he obviously was expressing his own interest in that and had done a lot of reading, I think, in the subject. But today we're here to talk about this beautiful deluxe slipcase edition of the graphic novel retelling of I'm a Barbarian from Cedar Run Publications. Take it out of the slipcase here so you can see it. It's really quite a nice piece of work. Has a forward here in the beginning by Jim Sullis, who started up the online program for the comic strips at edgarriceburroughs.com. And this is actually the very first book out of the gate, the first print edition of any of our many, many ERB online comic strips. So it's quite a historic book. I think most ERB fans would want to get in their collection. There's also, in addition, if you pay a little extra, you can get a signed book plate signed by the author, the writer, Thomas Simmons, Mike Dubisch, the artist that we have here today with us, and L. Jamal Walton. So, you got it put in yours. I didn't stick mine in yet. So it is a beautiful book. I'll page through it a little bit here to show off some of the artwork, but very, very cool. I like the colorings that you did in this. You were the colorist on this too, is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So it kind of evokes the ancient times, with cool little like dashes of color in it. I really like that, So
thank you.
But so as we start off, Mike, could you tell us a little bit about your background as an artist?
Sure. What I've worked on in my background as an artist. I started out very young, actually. I was still in high school when I broke into the comic book industry. And I did so both as a colorist, where I worked at an independent studio that was coloring for small press color comics in the 1980s. At the same time, I was also writing and drawing my own short comic stories, and I began to publish them. And I continued to publish that sort of thing throughout my time in art school at the School of Visual Arts in New York City, where I met my wife, Carolyn Watson Dubisch, who was also an artist and writer. And then I also returned to the coloring studio after art school, where at that point it had moved on to coloring for larger companies like Dark Horse and Marvel. So I did that while I broke into illustration, starting out with magazines that were running at the time, Science Fiction Age, Realms of Fantasy, a few others, and role-playing game books. Especially, I started out in the Palladium Books Rifts series and their high fantasy series, and then soon after started working for Wizards of the Coast and TSR, doing Dungeons and Dragons type work. Let's see. After that, it was in the early 2000s, and I began to focus on some teaching work, and I became an instructor at the Academy of Art University. And then, and I really focused on that. I wrote a bunch of classes for them, and I'm still with the Academy. I've been there for 10 years now. But at some point in there, I decided that it was time to get back into comics, despite the economics and the labor of it. It was still a medium that I knew and that I know and that I've always loved. And so I sent out a couple of inquiries, and by the end of the day, not only was I drawing more short horror comics for Warrant Publishing, but Tom had responded directly to my message, and we began talking about which of the Edgar Rice Burroughs properties he had dibs on as adapter. And as soon as I heard the words "I am a barbarian," I said, "That's the one." So it didn't matter. It didn't matter what it was about. All I knew was like, no, that's the one. I'm going to draw a comic called "I Am a Barbarian." Absolutely. And so, I read the book, and it's, of course, I don't recall it being one of the ones I read as a kid. It is possible, but I read the novel and loved it. Absolutely unique and evocative and amazing.
That was one of my other questions. Was, did you read Edgar Rice Burroughs before you worked on this project? Or it sounds like you did. So you were a fan?
Absolutely. I was a huge fan, especially when I was a kid. Huge Tarzan fan.
Yeah.
I, as a small kid, of course, was just absolutely enraptured by all the old movies. In my day, that was what was on TV, was old black and white movies and stuff. So, I loved all the Tarzan movies. I don't know if I should. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say it. I had my mom or had managed to order for me some sort of like Tarzan loincloth thing. I remember it had a strap. I was like a little kid, like 4 or 5 years old or something. I'd be out in the yard doing the Tarzan yell. So I was pretty much an enormous fan. A bit older, I actually, this is sort of interesting. We had moved into a new house, and I loved exploring, little spaces at every little inch of the place. I didn't mind if it was dusty, hot, sweaty, or whatever. If there was possibility of treasure to be found up there, I would search it. So in addition to whatever junk my parents had put up there, pretty interesting chunk usually. I think it was in there that I first discovered Heavy Metal magazine. I found a box that was actually left by one of the previous owners of the house, and it was filled with hardbound classics, including Tarzan and John Carter of Mars.
Wow.
And
that is quite a treasure.
It really was. And of course, everything else, the Jungle Book, Sherlock Holmes, everything. And so I had this access to this library of classics, just found. And so of course I read all that stuff and really loved it. Recently we read the John Carter books, up to 5 or 6 or so. Just incredible adventures and surprisingly sophisticated science fiction ideas in there. Just really enjoy his work a lot.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, and not to mention, some of you may be familiar with some fairly sizable Tarzan comics that told the origin of Tarzan. I haven't owned whatever edition I was enraptured in a long time, so I don't know what it is, but there were definitely some Tarzan comics that completely held me captivated.
Yeah, those are aren't those the Joe Kubert ones, the oversized one?
The one I remember, I feel like was by a more academic artist, a little bit more boring artist than Kubert.
Okay.
But I know that the Kubert ones are wow.
Yeah.
His work is so wonderful. Yep. So wonderful. Oh, and of course, as a Frank Frazetta fan, obviously anyone who knows my work knows that I have a passing familiarity with Frazetta's stuff, and of course all of the Frazetta's explorations of Edgar Rice Burroughs' worlds, which really looked like he read the books and understood them, and then furthermore, the Michael Whalen covers to the Mars books were just also a huge inspiration to me.
Excellent. What is that like, that feeling that you are going to be able to illustrate official Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff? I mean, it must be like, as a writer, having written in Burroughs's worlds, like that is that feeling. It's an amazing thing just to step into that.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just an honor to be able to do it. To have been given this chance to bring this kind of the rare sort of odd bird out of the Edgar Rice Burroughs library to life in this way. And it was fantastic working with Tom Simmons, who really could elaborate on the interest in Roman and Latin and Greek culture that he displays. And he was certainly on his toes to make sure that I was historically accurate. In fact, early on in the process, I pitched to him the idea, well, what if we rebuild and sort of restructure I Am a Barbarian to be more of in the sort of space fantasy genre, you know, and just we just do it almost exactly like the descriptions, but just, you know, instead of a authentic time you know, boat, you know, we would have like a, you know, floating, you know, airships and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, Tom, of course, nixed that right away. Is very,
Yeah.
very important to him.
Yeah.
That we
Well, I mean,
have historically accurate.
yeah, my understanding is he had a background already in an interest in Roman, ancient Rome. So,
yeah, he's
yeah.
extremely
Yeah.
knowledgeable, and it was able to, you know, was always able to provide, you know, incredible reference, and it just, you know, always knew the answers, and you know, it corrected his well, the word I think he used is historicity. It drove him to make minor corrections historically to the book that he just, I guess he just couldn't bring himself to immortalize in the strip these errors, and some, I guess, some other sort of political opinion stuff he felt he eliminated out of the storyline. My contribution was to suggest to him that we open with the more dynamic scenes of Brit's youth, rather than jumping right to kind of starting at the ending, which is one of Burroughs's quirks, if you will, as a writer, is this, you know, it's always some journal being read way later or something.
Right. Yeah. Let's just give if you could, like, give a little bit of an overview of the story, and because there's some people who might just not have read the story, just a taste of it, not true spoilers or whatever, but, you know, it begins with Britannicus. He's not named, presumably not named Britannicus yet, right?
That is correct. Yes, that's his slave name, of course. I'm not sure he ever reveals
I don't think he
his
does.
real name in the entire story, and that's a very interesting point. We do know that he is the grandson of, I don't know if I can say this pronounced correctly, Siguratrix. Basically, he is from a line of kings, of Celtic kings. And so he is of royal blood, which is always important in literature. But however, his whole tribe has kind of fallen on hard times and are kind of fighting their way across the countryside for survival, and ultimately end up defeated by a different Celtic tribe and enslaved and sold to the Romans, who you know, treat that as their personal victory, as if they captured them. And Germanicus, leading this particular group of Romans, is very excited to have this impressive batch of captives, including the chieftain, who's this Brit's father, who's a huge warrior. So Germanicus is there with his family, and his son is Caligula. It would translate directly as Little Boots, referring to the fact that baby Caligula liked to wear a little Roman centurion costume, or you know, basically Roman guard costuming, would get right down to the leather boots. So he was called Little Boots, Caligula. And he said, you know, he took one look at Britannicus and knew that was the new toy he wanted. And so he was spared from execution with the rest of his family, but enslaved for life with the threat of crucifixion style execution hanging over his head every day of his life. And as he sees his parents later led to execution to the cheers of the Romans, he vows that someday he would kill a Caesar. So just to continue, though, the beginning of the book is very much about how Britannicus, which is the new name he is given, simply child of Britain, more or less, as opposed to where they are, all Romans. It's actually full title Britannicus Servus Caligula Caesar, etc., something. They basically they grow up as brothers, and so when we get to the inevitable tragic end, we are dealing with two people who are deeply connected.
Yeah, it's interesting. You called it, I think you called it an oddball novel for Burroughs, but it's interesting. I don't think I'm alone in this. I've run into several fans who've said this, but it was one of my favorite ERB novels, and I think it was because it was so different. Because
Yes.
you read a lot, and he did use some formulas in his writing, even though they were very entertaining. He always had a knack with being able to sort of tell that same formula over and over again. But
this is how I see it. His normal character they are kings of their kings and super powered kings of their secret worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Britannicus, even though he's strapping and strong and could play Tarzan on TV probably, he's not. He's a slave, and it's a completely different role from who we usually see Edgar Rice Burroughs writing about.
Cool. So the strip ran from 2016 to 2021. So that's a long time. What are some of the challenges that an artist faces on working on such a long-term, weekly comic strip, basically?
Right. I came to quite like having the continuity of a project, so that whenever other work ran out, it was always there to be like, got to get some I Am a Barbarian pages done. Mm-hmm. So from the point of view of the freelancer, it was entirely to my advantage to just always have at least 4 pieces due every month. It gave me something to work on. Up until then, I had probably worked in larger blocks. For instance, a 32-page issue would get entirely penciled before I started inking it. So the breaking it down into these smaller blocks of pages was an interesting revelation to see how it affected my workflow to have, to do the project as, say 4 pages at a time, or 10 pages at a time, or 12 pages at a time. However many pages of script time I have descending, I usually start working on, and with the intention of turning them all in more or less at once. It's just how I work, and that's an interesting note too. Is just to make that clear, is that I'm not a person who starts a page, just puts a piece of paper down, starts drawing, and continues until the picture is finished. I work on a lot of things at once. I jump back and forth. I like to get a flow going. I like to warm up on whatever I want to warm up on first, and then by the end of the day, the stuff that looks too hard to draw is much easier to draw. So it actually really worked out very nicely. The biggest challenge was probably consistency, and I undercut myself on that right away by kind of just experimenting a little bit with different techniques for finishing the pages right from the start. So that's either I guess I just sort of undercut the problem of consistency by not being consistent right from the start, so as the series when I sometimes was drawing, pages at, say, a watercolor page size, and then sometimes I'd just go bananas and draw them at like huge, like Prince Valiant originals type size, just way too big for contemporary comics. And but I actually did a large body of the job at that enormous size. Especially ridiculous when you consider that the only guaranteed audience are the ones reading it on a little
right.
What do you call it, webcomic size thing,
right.
very often on their phone. So I'm doing artwork this big for a comic people are reading this tiny.
Wow.
But that's how you get the detailed look. Over time, I did start working on smaller paper in the hopes of greater speed. Whether I achieved that or not, I can't really say, since I never actually timed how long work takes me. But in theory, the smaller pages went a little faster. There's a large, still, even from then, a sizable reduction. So certainly not anything any of the readers would have noticed in terms of detail changing. The neat thing about the tough thing about a big project is losing steam, and so that you just get to some of those last pages and you're just worn out on it. What was really neat about breaking it up like this was that each time I got a new batch of pages from Tom, it was a new chance to get it right. Can I do even better? Can I improve my work? Can I make this batch of pages the best batch of pages? And each time I got a new batch of scripts, it was a fresh project to prove myself again and see if I can do better and top what either top what I did in the last, or avoid anything that anything I was unhappy with or unsatisfied with. Try and do better this time, and just really it was a very interesting and effective method of quality control and keeping us both kind of fresh on the project.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I'm a writer, so and I write novels, and there's some parallels there, because as you're getting I feel that the last portions of my novels that I write are better than the earlier parts, because I am really trying to do that kind of same thing, to make it, okay, how can I make this even more interesting, because I'm in the climax now, and how am I gonna do that? So I see some parallels there.
I'm also a writer, and so I totally know what you mean. It's so funny how you got this idea for a beginning, and you write it, and it's very much you're crafting it. It's coming out the way you want, and then you're into it, and you're into the parts that you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And you have those moments where you're not typing, you're not writing, you're just walking around, thinking out that story, and then suddenly it's there.
Yeah.
And you go write it, and it has twice the energy and snap. The words have twice the snap of all the stuff that you thought you knew what you were doing. And then this thing that just happened while you're in the zone is just so much stronger.
Yeah.
So it is. So that's very much the same with artwork. You have to kind of trick yourself. for one, and I tell this to my students all the time, it's just a simple principle of an object in motion tends to stay in motion. So, yeah, you just, the best thing to do to get anywhere is to start and stick with it. And, just somehow push over that hump of of motivation, of inspiration, of whatever it is, or even simple loginess, because it's early. You just push past all of that, and eventually it may take hours, but eventually you'll get to that zone.
Yeah,
and it's easier.
Yeah,
and if you don't get to that zone, you're never going to get your work where you want it anyway. Yeah. So, it's worth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, working very closely with writer Tom Simmons to get the historical details right. I'm interested because I'm interested at stuff like, can't get it on the camera here, stuff like this.
Sure.
Yeah. What kind of reference did you use for like that?
There is a surprising amount of reference out there. And I would say that when it comes to that, the score, I guess that would be the scoring that they're doing there. That's how they're counting laps or whatever for the horses. Tom would probably be able to explain it a lot better. But yeah, that was just snagged out of a small detail inside the inside a painting of the of the chariot race.
Yeah.
And I said, wait, what's that? And I zero in, and it's like, oh, okay, that's them doing the scoring. And in that case, it was more my research than Tom's, actually. It was strictly noticing of it, just me studying all my reference for the chariot race. And seeing this little detail.
Yeah. I mean, the book really just brings ancient Rome to life. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was one of the challenges that I was most concerned about.
Yeah. It's just, I wish I could show the whole thing off, but
which is impossible because it's such a huge book. This is, just so people understand, there is, the price of it is worth it. Is well over 200 pages of art and story. This is a huge graphic novel.
Absolutely. So, it comes in a beautiful slipcase, as I showed off before. So it's definitely this is not like, some flimsy graphic novel.
This is a very, very fine production, and again, it's all through the pure will of Tom Simmons to get this project out, and the lucky kismet of him of him intercepting my inquiry to Edgar Rice Burroughs about the comic strips and immediately getting started on this project together. And just an enormous amount of support from him overall in terms of making sure that I was getting by okay on while working on the pages. He bought original art from me as the project was being created. I, of course, always slipped a little extra in there for him too. But so I certainly had enough. So Tom ended up with all the primo pages of I Am a Barbarian. I made absolutely certain of that. He's just a very generous guy, and he's just a sweetheart, and he's just incredible. Just a great person, and it's really been a privilege to have him in my life, and it's all through Edgar Rice Burroughs. So just someone who I adore.
Yeah, he had such a passion for this project. We had multiple phone calls at our Tarzan office with him, going over details, and he really wanted to do a top of the line production, and he succeeded. So I was so impressed when I saw the book when we got the first sample that came in. So it's excellent. So I recommend it. Should be on the shelf of every real Edgar Rice Burroughs fan out there. So check it out at cedarrunpublications.com. So,
and it is a limited run, guys. So, just go ahead, order now. It doesn't cost that much when you consider what you're getting, and that this is your only chance to get it. Certainly in this edition, and really, who knows? This may be the only printing of it. So, really hope that you go ahead and get either the signed book plate edition or then there's a slightly somewhat more somewhat lower priced version without the book plate too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But the book plate one's only $250, so that's definitely going to sell out. So I would get that now. You can.
Yeah. If it's still available, definitely the book plate edition is by far the more collectible one, and will support Tom's efforts more as well. So I just and sales benefit both him and me directly. So it's just it's a no-brainer. Just take a look at the book art online and order it. They aren't going to last that much longer.
Yep. And like I said, it's the very, very first one out of the gate from our online program, online ERB comic strip program that's been turned into a book. Dark Horse has come out with a couple since then, some Tarzan ones, but this is the first one. So it's definitely something that you want in your collection. So
it's historical significance just by virtue of being the first of the Edgar Rice Burroughs online comic strips being collected and put in. Yes, we were just under the wire and beat Dark Horse to the punch for that historical note.
Do you have any other plans in the works for doing ERB?
I do other Edgar Rice Burroughs art, mostly at this point on my own reconnaissance. This one that I did just for fun and to sell shortly after rereading some of the Mars books, and so ended up being used as the cover to this fanzine. That is devoted to the Burroughs world.
Very cool.
Other than that, I'm waiting. I would love to. I'd love to work on some other Edgar Rice Burroughs properties.
Cool.
And
what other non-Burroughs work are you doing right now?
All right. Well,
because you've done like Lovecraft and stuff like that too. I know, right?
That is true. Yes, I'm well known in the Lovecraftian field. This particular book is out of print at the moment. Actually, this particular book is out of print forever. The files are mostly missing. But yes, So I am known for this Lovecraftian work on black board, and as well for regular Lovecraftian type stuff. So yes, I do panels on H.P. Lovecraft, and have been involved in several films that were aired at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival Festival and appeared there as a guest and done demonstration art and contests there at the.
That's a great show. That's a great. I went to it once. Yeah, I've been to it once.
Okay.
I tried to go another time and they were sold out. So.
Oh man.
Drove all the way down there. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I want to say if that ever. Oh, and you drove all the way down there.
Yeah, I wasn't living in Washington State at the time, so it wasn't that far. It's a three-hour drive. But
no. If that ever happens again, email me, and I'll see if I can use my inside connections to get you in. So yeah, the other thing that I work on regularly is the adventures of Professor Dario Bava. And these are a series of graphic novels and comics and other related product. This is the occult activity book.
Oh, nice.
And it's mostly a coloring book, but also has a spirit board.
Oh, very cool.
A Ouija board that's on the inside
nice
cover. So very cool project. But generally, it's a graphic novel that is about a boy. It's just basically a tribute to everything that author Phil Mucci loves in the Italian horror cinema scene. So people familiar with that will recognize the references in the Professor Dario Bava title, and we also get covers by Manuel Taglietti, who is well known as sort of the Italian horror comic book cover artist. So it gives it a really nice feel. This cover's mine.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just absolutely wild, bizarre, drug crazed, sex crazed, anti-Catholic, horror, time traveling werewolf epic. So I've been extremely privileged to be the main artist on this comic series. I did appear recently in Slow Death Zero. This is the presumably final edition or final issue of a comic. The first issue came out. There's only been like maybe 13 publications with Slow Death from Last Gasp, and the first issue actually I think it came out the year I was born in 1971. But I've always been a huge fan because it's always featured Richard Corbin and Greg Irons and of course my friend William Stout doing just incredible work. So I've always been a huge fan of the comic, and I'm lucky enough to have a couple of stories in here. Too hard for me to find them, but I think I'm the only one with 2 stories. Has the last comic book work by Richard Corbin in it. Oh, okay. Next in my pile is this sort of blast from the past stuff. This is one of my first. Oh, this is a couple of my Aliens versus Predator classics covers. So this was the original Aliens versus Predator comic, and it got reprinted. It got reprinted with new cover art by me. This stuff is going all the way back to 1997. I'm also known.
Is that Dark Horse? Was that Dark Horse? That put that out? Who was the publisher?
Yeah, it was Dark Horse. Basically, this was a reprint, probably around the time that the first AVP movie came out. They went ahead and put this back into print.
I was just going to say there is a Burroughs connection there because Tarzan fought Predator at the Earth's core.
That is correct. That is correct. You're right. All right. Well, I think I'll be interested to see if there's a Burroughs connection here. Probably there's probably none of your viewers are young enough to have been exposed to these. But back in the early 2000s, I was the artist of the Boxcar Children graphic novels. So I really there's something about adaptations of literature that really appeals to me. That kind of makes it like there's no question of why this thing should exist. It's already self-justified, and now I'm just doing this kind of tribute, immortalization of something. So I do really enjoy that. And in the Creeps magazine, they had me do one of those as well. In one of these, yeah, this one. So the Creeps had me do a Classics Illustrated. Yeah, it's somewhere in here, somewhere in the magazine. Hopefully, it says who the original author was.
Nice.
But it's in the dead space. So I just yeah, it's definitely kind of a passion of mine to illustrate the greats. So this is the main project that I've been working on. Forbidden Futures is an anthology magazine where we give my wildest personal artwork to our favorite authors, and they deliver stories based on the art. That rule occasionally gets broken, but that's the general concept. That way I just get to sit around doing the art I want, and writers get the art as a prompt to write short fiction. In this case, and whenever I have comics ready, we also print them in the magazine as well. In this issue, we actually got David Gerald, who created the Tribbles, and also worked on Land of the Lost. So there's an Edgar Rice Burroughs connection. Yep. And so he wrote an original story.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So we got an original story from David, which I did some original illustrations for, and we reprinted 2 public domain stories, one from Andre Norton and another from Philip K. Dick, and it's a classic Philip it's a classic Philip K. Dick story that had never been fully illustrated. So I really enjoyed that. And here's actually a illustration I did of Philip K. Dick from 20 or 30 years ago that seen print for the first time. Yeah. So there's just a little peek at the Philip K. Dick story art.
Yeah,
and
I love his work, so that's great. Yeah.
This issue, this is the current issue. Also contains brand new comic book story that I wrote and drew, as well as some comics that have not been seen for over 30 years that I actually restored the original ending to. So that's being seen. The original ending to that is being seen for the first time. Other than that, just a great magazine. We are on issue. That's issue 10.
Where can you pick that up?
Earlier issues.
Where can you pick that up?
Generally, the best place, of course, to go is forbiddenfutures.com. There are a handful of stores in the San Francisco area, I think, that may be carrying it. Word Horde Emporium carries it, but generally, the best thing to do is to go to forbiddenfutures.com. You can order individual issues or a subscription to the magazine. What we're working on, originally the subscription of the magazine would have meant you were getting a quarterly magazine. That wrangling all the authors and putting out, a comic, or that is to say a magazine, this put together and fancy 4 times a year proved to be a bit much. That's a tough job. So right now, where we're going with it is you'll soon be able to join the Forbidden Futures Book Club.
Oh, nice.
Let's see if there is an ad. Okay, I can't find the ad. But in that case, you would still receive work. There it is. So what we're doing now is the Forbidden Futures Book Club, where it works very much like the old record clubs, where you sign up, you pay a small fee, and you're able to choose three books right away. And then you continue to be billed, and we continue to send you cool stuff. And of that cool stuff includes books like this, much easier for us to put together, but still equally awesome chapbooks where we focus on one author and all my illustrations, and we lavishly illustrate the chapbook. So these will also come as part of the Forbidden Futures Book Club. And yeah, and that's about it. Right. Only that.
Okay, well, that's very cool. You're very, very busy and very, very well qualified to have illustrated I'm a Barbarian. So everybody check that out. Hopefully we might have do another video later with Tom Simmons, because I'd like to talk to him too about the project, because he had such a passion for it and has such a rich knowledge of ancient Roman history.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see that, and I think you'll get a completely different, a whole different take on the process.
Yeah,
how it was for him.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Mike, and everybody check out the book at cedarrunpublications.com. So that's it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, everybody, you take care.